All right. So
Got it.
I don't know how many people got a chance to listen to the extra long podcast, and I'll put the link in this recording topics area in case you want to listen to it along with this. But our topic tonight is alcohol. So it's kind of all things alcohol. And the reason I added this podcast is because I just really thought this guy laid out physiologically what changes when you drink. And he talks a lot about, it's not just like over drinkers or what you would, whatever guidelines you have in your mind right now. He basically takes it to, if you have 2 drinks a week, every week, you're a chronic drinker because your body can count on that thing chronically happening. So whether you have a drink a night or you have all your drinks on one night, doesn't matter. It's that alcohol is consistently being added into the system. Okay. So I thought that was kind of a revelation in itself, because I would say I'm a 2 drink a week-ish. There's some weeks I don't. There's some weeks that maybe it's 3 or 4. And but it, it's most weeks, unless we were on gut protocol, because that we all stopped for that one. But so that would still be considered chronic, right? It's a regular occurrence. And so I just thought that whole terminology was pretty fascinating. But I also appreciate the fact that he was not like condemning in any of this. He's just like, listen, this is just what happens. So whether you choose to or not, that's, your choice, right? He's like, I'm just going to tell you, I'm just like, Lily, are you okay in there? Is Chase going to get you there? Because I feel like you're bumping around.
Chase is driving.
Yeah. I love it. She's frozen. I feel like I need to take her picture quick. Don't unfreeze yet. There we go. Okay.
Did you get it?
I think I got it.
You were frozen, Lily.
You were frozen like this, so I got your picture. So it was just such a good take on it. So who did listen to it? I know Lily's listened to part of it. Did anybody get a chance?
No, I wanted to. I didn't get a chance
No,
though.
but I will.
And it's long.
Yes, I listened to the whole thing.
Okay. So where did I put my notes here? Let's see if it transferred to my phone yet. So let's talk first in just generalities about alcohol, because we've done several calls before about alcohol. And like some people want to know, like, how do I count calories with alcohol, right? So in general, you kind of assume 7 calories per gram. So like, I think a shot and an ounce and a half of like hard alcohol is usually about 60 calories-ish. If it has some additives in it, like if there's going to be some sweetener or things like that, then it might go up to 100. But it's one of those things is you're just kind of figuring it's somewhere between what you have for a protein and what you have for a fat in your body metabolizing calorie wise. Okay, so it's fairly high on the calorie spectrum for the amount of that you're ingesting. Your body, when you drink alcohol, wants to get through it. So it's processing it before a lot of other things, just because it wants to get through it and get it out. So one of the things that he talks about, and this is always fascinating because everybody's got their theories on like, well, if I eat bread, that'll absorb the alcohol, right? That's one of the wives' tales I hear all the time. So, and one of the things he talks about in this podcast is when you consume calories at the same time as consuming alcohol or immediately before, right? It can't be like an hour before. It's got to be like immediately before or at the same time. That slows the processing of the alcohol. It does not necessarily change anything with the alcohol, right? You're still going to get that amount of alcohol in your system, but it might not hit you as quickly because it's going to have to also be processed along with these things. And women tend to feel the effects of alcohol faster and sooner than men do. In a lot of cases, there have been some studies out there that talk about how just the way women's metabolism it can hit, and maybe some of that is also just size too. So size obviously matters with the ratio of alcohol to your size. So the whole idea, I always find it funny, right? Like if you're drunk and you're like, eat some bread, it's not gonna absorb the alcohol. It's not gonna like prevent the alcohol from going in. It will slow some of the absorption, but you're still gonna, in the end, get the same amount that you've ingested. And it's not gonna make you less drunk per se. So that's kind of one of those things. So I've always been kind of like, I guess what things that I've been told is like, you should, if you want things to absorb slower, you don't want to quickly feel the effect of your alcohol, then eat along with it. He went a little deeper and talked about eating a fat, protein, carb, having all three in the foods that you eat prior, or I'm sorry, eat during, because that is the best combination to minimize a quick absorption. Which is interesting because I don't, he didn't really go into why necessarily. He's like, just that's what the studies show. I'm trying to think of what else we've talked about in our past calls about the basics of alcohol. In relation to the plans, Autumn has 2 to 3 treats a week. So that is your alcohol consumption. So if you have 2 to 3 drinks in a week, then no sugary treats, that's your treat. And those are 1.5 ounces, I believe, or maybe they're 1 ounce. They're a shot, I think, which is usually 1.5 ounces. And there are a lot of fixate recipes on it. So if you want to look at those to see how to minimize additional sugars if you'd like to have a drink. Let's see what else before we dive into some of the stuff he says. Well, so we talked about Bev. That was like from our past things with alcohol. I feel like I'm a little mushy because of listening to him for the last 2 hours. I feel like I've been sitting in a medical classroom trying to absorb it all.
Yeah. Yeah, it was extremely fascinating and I mean, it's definitely one of those things that could be looked at as high level because he does talk like clinical aspects and a lot of like vitamin specific, a lot of chemical processes and stuff like that, but it was still extremely fascinating. But I don't know. I'm trying to think anything specifically that would be related to like our nutrition plans. I don't really know that there is much of anything that's specific to that.
Yeah. Well, if we figure it out, I'm sure it'll come to it. So, a couple of the things that, just like I mentioned with this podcast that he had talked about, is the whole idea of chronic, right? And I think that's pretty fascinating because I think a lot of times you're like, I only have 1 or 2 a week, so I would not be considered a chronic drinker, but you are. So it's kind of coming to terms with that. Because the piece I thought was fascinating is that when he talks about taking a break from alcohol and seeing things reverse, he's talking in terms of 2 to 6 months.
Okay.
So that because a lot of people do like a dry January, or we took 4 weeks off during gut protocol, or if you extended that into, another round of it, maybe 8 weeks. But that's like the very beginning where he is saying you need this 2 to 6 months for the effects of the alcohol to reverse. And we'll talk about what effects I'm talking about here in a second. But I really thought that time frame was pretty fascinating because that's a lot, it's a fair amount of time. 2 to 6 months. Nobody talks about taking a 2 to 6 month sobriety break. It's like a month usually. So, and really a month isn't quite enough time.
The one thing that I did come up with is gut microbiome. Its effect on, because it is a toxin and it literally kills our gut microbiome.
Exactly.
drink.
Yeah. So he talks about that later in the podcast where it's not only, let's see, I wrote down, there's like a few points, because it's not only causing inflammation, it's killing the good bacteria you have in there, because alcohol tends to kill what it comes in contact. It harms your cells as it's going through. And then it gives you it allows the bad bacteria to really come in. And then it
Mhm.
also gives what he was saying is like a temporary leaky gut. So it's not necessarily that you permanently have a leaky gut, but during this time, the way the alcohol acts, it's acting like a leaky gut. So it's allowing bad bacteria in through the barrier, alcohol through the barrier.
Mhm.
And the interesting part also is when all of this is happening with your microbiome, it's releasing to your brain that you should drink more.
Mhm.
So it's like creating this bad situation, and then it's like, oh yeah, let's take some more in too. Keep it going.
Well, it's because it gives the dopamine and serotonin boost right at that initial point, which, oh, there's just so much. But yeah, it gives that initial boost in the beginning, but then our body naturally, depending upon how fast our bodies metabolize the alcohol and are able to metabolize the alcohol, because he made mention of some people who literally cannot metabolize alcohol and they
Right?
immediately
They
feel
just
sick.
feel awful. Yeah, off all the time. Yeah.
Um and then, but yeah, so depending upon how fast you metabolize the alcohol, you will have that dopamine, serotonin boost. You'll become more lively, you'll become more energetic, you'll become more talkative, and possibly spontaneously dance or whatever. And then there'll become a dip. And that's when you see people go for another drink.
Right.
But
They want that
that,
back. Yeah.
because they want that back, they want that initial yay back, but they never can actually achieve that again.
Unless you're prone to alcoholism, and then you do feel that.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's also
Yeah.
fascinating, right? That
Mhm.
you get more energized as you continue to drink if you are more prone toward alcoholism. Um, uh, but I mean, that kind of makes sense, right? Because it's like you do get to stay on this high level, and so then you do continue to drink more.
Mhm.
Fascinating.
Right.
The whole thing.
Right.
Hey, Jess,
Yes.
you're just in time.
Yes.
I thought it was
And
really
then,
interesting how he talked about the fact, like, if you drank in college, like you binge in college and basically had all that poison, as he calls it, poison, in your body over and over and over again, that you could reverse the effects, like you said, for when you go
Yes.
dry, that you wouldn't necessarily ruin the rest of your life by doing it for that short of a time, earlier in your life. But if you continue to do it, then that's when it damages um, stuff in your body and
Right, it
stuff.
depends on how long and how much, and to know how much is reversible. Yeah. But like the lower amounts, even if you're a chronic drinker, the lower amounts, you can reverse it with that 2 to 6 months. And,
Yeah.
and if it was more higher amounts, then it may take longer than that 6 months, but there is a reverse that happens for everyone. Just how close you get back to a normal state really depends on the volume. Yeah.
well, and the actual, like, I mean, it's not just the gut microbiome it is probably the gut. A lot of it probably has to do with the gut microbiome and how you're destroying it, as to the effects that he's meaning that you go to repair, because you're like literally repairing how your moods, your like who you are outside of drinking, because you live in a level of less serotonin. Like you live in a level where you're um gosh, how did he even explain it? Like basically you're just not you're not as happy. You are more prone to unhappy things and irritability and like that type of living, anxiety. And I mean, I see that with some people. I see that, people who struggle with anxiety, they'll drink, and then their anxiety just continues to get worse the more
Right.
they continue to drink. And I know that personally, like if I have too many days where I've drank, I will feel more anxious and more, but he's basically saying that it literally alters your status quo as
Your
to
baseline,
being,
yeah.
yeah, your
It changes your
baseline
baseline
changes.
of your
Yeah,
cortisol, of your serotonin, of everything
right.
that you normally,
Cortisol.
yeah, cortisol.
Yes. Yes, that's what I was trying to come up with. I'm like, it's the yeah. So I mean, like you literally, so then you're more prone to also gain fat. And you're just living in that status. You
Mhm.
there's, not drinking this weekend just because because you drank last weekend and you're not going to drink this weekend, it's not going to change it. You literally have to go through that period of time of healing, basically. And that is really the length of time is like there wasn't a specificity because it's really based upon the individual. I mean, in so many manners, like how they metabolize
Right,
the alcohol um and how long and how much and how often they drank.
yeah.
It was just, yeah.
Well, and along that same idea, he talks about in your neurotransmitters in the beginning and how it deals with your inhibition, your habitualness, and your baseline of inhibition also changes. So if you're a chronic drinker, then your inhibition level is a different level than it would be if you're not a chronic drinker. So, you may have more rash decisions, more inhibited actions, ideas. And it also talked about being habitual too. So I don't know if that's just being centered around certain habits and stuff. He didn't really quite get into like what that looks like in real life. He just kept using the word habitual. So I don't know. All of that is really fascinating because it's like it kind of keeps you in this zone where you think this is my reliever, this is my stress reliever, but it's really compiling all of these things and making it worse, right? Your sleep's worse. He talks a little bit about hangovers and how you're really kind of just in like a hypnotic state, not a sleep state when you go to bed drunk. So you really don't even sleep well. And so then, you're waking up feeling awful. And the whole thing was just really fascinating. And he's like a lot of, they talk about short-term effects or things like that, but we don't really talk about these long-term brain differences, gut differences from just
Well, and then
chronically using.
the big kicker is the breast cancer connection and that genetic.
Did he talk
I
about
mean,
the end?
or
Because
that
I still
gene.
have like a half hour left.
Oh my gosh,
Okay,
yeah.
so I'm not there yet. Okay. Okay.
It just one drink, 1 10 ounce, no, not 10 ounce, 1 10 gram, it's 10, like one drink in the US, because he equated it to different countries. One drink in the US increases your breast cancer. It was like 4 to 15%.
Wow.
One drink
One drink,
often. Just one drink in your life.
one drink
Wow,
every time
I'm screwed.
increases your breast cancer ability to grow those cells, because he talks about how your body is constantly dealing with cancer cells popping up and
Mhm.
then your immune system gobbles them up. And but yeah, it increases for women. He said specifically, which I mean, I know that that particular cancer also, I believe, is prostate for men. Is that correct? Like the same. So I can't remember which one it is. If it's colon or prostate that is similar for men. But yeah, so he didn't specify that in men, but he did hit on that percentage, which I was like, holy snap, that's
That's big.
insane.
Yeah.
Like that's a game changer right there.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're prone to breast cancer already, like if it's in your family genetic, then I mean that would definitely be something to steer clear of. But yeah, the whole thing with that it's literally only like it was 2 to 7, I think it was. Like he was basically saying it was like 2 to 7 drinks a week, which could look like, I mean, and then he broke it down to like, and that's chronic. And I'm like, okay, well, what if I go like 4 weeks or 3 weeks and I only have like 3 drinks? Is that chronic? Like, I mean, but yes, technically it would be if you calculate it out, it's literally like
Yeah. If it's
2
consistent,
drinks a
if-
month.
yeah. If if you're
Almost.
consistently adding alcohol in, it's chronic.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but he also said multiple times, I'm not saying like don't drink,
Right.
but I'm talking scientifically what is happening in your body for you to know what is actually happening, because you can't, because you can't know what you don't know. And
Right.
wouldn't it be nice to know basically
Yeah.
the effect that it is truly having on you?
I mean, and we
So
can have this same conversation about eating vegetables that have pesticides on them, right? Like there are
Mhm.
all kinds of things in our world
Right.
that are coming into our body and causing issue, which is why we
Mhm.
all have so many autoimmunes and everything else happening these days. But yeah, that's why I appreciate the fact that he's kind of like, listen, let's not like, this isn't about you should or shouldn't. This is just how and I also appreciate the fact that he used studies that were large studies. It wasn't like this is 2 people that were in this lab for this amount of time, and you know what I mean? So he used very solid studies that were thousands of people to back up what's happening. I don't know. It's funny. I need to go and listen to more of his stuff now. This is the first thing I've listened of his, and I kind of liked his style and just the way he talked about things.
He did talk about like things that you can do though, like for instance, like if you experience a hangover, there are definitely, you want to hydrate with electrolytes. He also said to avoid that, you can have a drink and like your alcoholic beverage, and then instead of doing water, do an electrolyte drink or two, and then move on to the next. Um, he also talked about the importance of adding in fermented foods, and he said 2 to 4 times a day
Yeah,
of like reduced sugar style fermented foods. So we're not talking kombucha, I guess.
exactly. Yeah, no, I
We're
thought that
talking
was
like,
really fascinating that he said 2 to 4 servings a day.
I know, 2 to 4 servings a day. And that's also something that you do to aid in repairing in general.
Mhm.
But that can help reduce the hangover. And then he did put like a bit of a correlation that he was like, the studies are very minimal, but to boost your adrenaline
Yeah, yeah.
or epinephrine, adrenaline, and that can, because of basically your blood vessels constrict, or
Yeah, that's right.
say
They constrict
constrict or
after alcohol because they open during
yeah,
alcohol and they constrict
yeah,
after.
and then they constrict. And then so the adrenaline basically can cause them to open up,
Yeah.
and then you experience less pain from that. But he said, doing a very cold shower, he said on countless times, do not get into bodies of water when you are
I thought that was
drinking.
hilarious. Like he's like, don't
But
in the lake. Don't
yeah,
in the lake when you're
well,
drunk.
here I am,
That's not gonna
going down the river this summer, on raft, float tripping in big bodies of water with
Right.
alcohol in hand. But yeah, so he said that that's like really bad to do that. And he just said just make sure that it's not too cold. So I wouldn't go into Lake Michigan or something, or Lake Erie,
Do
or
a polar plunge.
Yeah, I would not do
Anything
that.
else, that might be out.
He's like, because that could cause you to have a heart attack. So that's not good
Right.
either. So just something, which he did reference another one of his podcasts that talk about the benefits of cold. What else?
Yeah, I should look at my list. Does anybody have any questions so far of what's what we're talking about here?
Oh, and pre and probiotics are good. He
Yeah,
said
but he's
like,
also said though
you-
he's a big fan of fermented, even more than that. Which
yes,
the gut
yes.
Will, I don't ever know how to say his last name, but the gut guy, he's also the same way about that. Big
So
fan.
then
Yeah.
how bad is kombucha for you then? Or hard
Not
kombucha?
that it's bad,
I
it's
don't-
just hard kombucha.
Well,
is not
hard
gonna have,
kombuchas.
it's not going to have the same as like a synergy. Hard kombucha is not. I don't think
What do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Gonna have the same?
it's not going to have the
Sugar?
same. No, it's just not going to have the same. I think
Benefits.
life of the live
Right.
things in it are probably not going to be as robust as it would be in synergy in an alcoholic drink. Because alcohol,
But it's
is
still
meant-
going to be
Okay.
alcohol.
Yeah.
It's still going to
Yeah.
be alcohol. It's still going to be the same level of poison. Basically, he said that there is no delineation between like, I'm going to drink a beer, I'm going to have a glass of wine, I'm going to have a hard liquor. It's just no. Like, I mean, it's if it's alcohol, it is poison to your body. End of story. No matter how, he's like, he talked about studies about how, there was the studies of red wine and how, oh, well, if you have a glass of red wine, it helps with, because it's not flavonoids, it's resveratrol,
Mhm.
resveratrol, I think
Yeah,
it is.
that's right.
That, but you cannot drink enough red wine to get the amount of resveratrol that would become beneficial without it harming you.
Right.
So he's like, that's not there are really no studies that show any consumption of alcohol to be beneficial.
And he never,
So-
he never addressed kombucha. And I'm sure it's just, even though it's not an added sugar, it is a sugar-based fermented food, right? And that's why Autumn's always like, no more than one yellow of it kind of thing, even on Portion Fix. And I think it's considered a treat on Portion Fix. I can't remember exactly. If it's considered a 2 to 3, I don't know that it'd be daily. So he talked about like, your different krauts and all the other things that we were eating, fermented veggies of some sort, kimchi, misos, things like that.
Yeah.
Just in
Yeah.
time for gut protocol.
Right?
It's a
Yeah,
perfect
I'm
segue.
actually,
Everybody
I'm
needs
looking
work
forward
here.
to listening to this.
It's
Can't wait to hear it.
really a good podcast. I just thought
Yes.
it's really good. It's long, but it's good.
What's
It
the name
is.
of the
And there's
podcast?
some,
It's in our chat. Maribel, are you in the coach chat?
Yeah, she's in there.
Okay, yeah, so
Yeah.
if you go under links, but I will put it, when I put this recording on
Okay.
YouTube, I will put the link to that podcast in there too, in the comment section, so it's here with it.
well, and he also talks about like telltale signs of things that could make you realize that you have the
Disposition.
disposition to
Predisposition.
become
Yeah.
an alcoholic,
Yeah,
and how even when it comes to looking at like something that can be a marker as to what would lead somebody to become an alcoholic can also be based upon how early you start consuming alcohol in your life, and how the percentages of kids who make it to the legal level of drinking alcohol before having their first drink are historically, statistically less likely to become an alcoholic.
right.
That was one of the things. But I mean, then just, yeah, how your body absorbs it can be like how much, I can't remember what the thing is that he calls it, that helps to break down the alcohol that's in our body.
Yeah, I can't remember either. That's in the beginning where he goes through a lot of terms where I'm like, phew, they're just.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, it was so full of information. But yeah, so depending upon that it can shift too. So like I think he was talking like Asian descent, like people in Asia cannot drink as much. Like
Mhm.
they have less of whatever this is genetically. And yeah, how quickly you start to respond to alcohol is a telltale sign. Like how long it takes you to actually start feeling the effects.
Hmm.
I
If you're affected more quickly, it's a sign that you're going to be less likely to become an alcoholic than somebody who is able to maintain, I guess, longer without having any type of shifts. Those are the people that, as Deanna was talking about, you become more energized as you drink. But he did clarify that eventually that you get to the point, even those people will get to the point of, being done and start to come down. And he talked about the differences between blackout drunk and passing out drunk. How blackout drunk is just when you literally don't remember what you
Right, your
did,
brain is
but
shutting down from the alcohol, so it's not gonna remember it, but it's still happening.
but you're not necessarily passed out,
Nope, you're not.
which I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, and yes, if you do experience blackout drunk periods, then you are at a higher risk level of being somebody who will become an alcoholic.
Well, my Indian heritage is not helping me in that aspect either, because we have that predisposition to alcoholism in the Indian heritage.
Well, and I wonder if it's because of whatever it is that he said
Yeah,
I
helps
have to
to
listen again to figure out what
literally
that, yeah.
like it's what, it's what helps to break down the alcohol in your body, and some people just don't have as much.
Yeah, that's probably what it is. And by the way, back to your so hard alcohol is 1.5 ounces is one yellow. And
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, so ounce and a half. Yeah.
yeah, and kombucha is 12 ounces, which is one yellow 3 times a week.
And I think that bottle's 16 ounces, isn't it? The
Yes.
energy
I think
bottles.
most of them are 16 ounces, yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's like, why can't we just all get along and have the same measurements?
that would
Yeah,
be
but then
Just make me a
but
12-ounce bottle.
with gut protocol, isn't it like only 6 ounces that we get?
Yeah, it's half a bottle.
Because I feel like
Yeah. Half a
yeah,
yellow. It's half a yellow, not half a bottle, half a
Mhm.
yellow.
Well,
but
I
it's
ended
six-
up by the
it's
end
5
I ended
ounces
up
or 6 ounces. I don't
It's
remember.
six. It's six.
Yeah.
It's
6.
half a yellow. It's half of whatever it is in portion picks.
And after I did the 4 weeks at exactly that, then the following weeks, I started to just split the bottle in half because I'm like, this is too much of a pain in my butt.
Yeah, I never.
Like, this is
I will
ridiculous.
be totally upfront. I went half a bottle the whole way through. I'm like, I am not leaving
Too much.
4 ounces in here or 2 ounces in here. We're just gonna do it.
Yeah. But yeah, it was very fascinating though, because I always knew that it was like a poison-esque. Now it's like, no, it really is just straight poison. I'm like,
Yeah.
but and I knew that from my personal trainer certification, though they didn't dive a whole lot into nutrition and things like that, they specifically say that it takes you like 2 days to fully detox from one time of drinking, and during that detoxing period you are not going to be building muscle, you're not going to be losing weight, you're just literally going through detoxing. And when I learned that, I was like, okay, well, that means I'm not gonna drink until I get to where I want to be. And that's literally what I did, because I'm like, no, I'm not slowing this process down. Like, that's awful. Means I have to do more work.
That's crazy that he talks about it like that, because alcohol really does affect your results and how how your muscles appear and look.
Yeah,
and-
it's not a calories in, calories out, right?
Mhm.
It's not just however many calories you consumed with your drink. There are all these other things that layer on top of each other, and depending on how much and how often, right, how chronic it is, then really shows up in so many other things. I mean, you think about just like not like your serotonin levels and just not wanting to do something for yourself, not feeling good about doing something for yourself. So then it's like, so then how many workouts do you miss later because of having a few drinks a week? And how much do you not reach? Like, I wondered when he kept saying habitual, and I'm like, well, how does that look when you're reaching for food, right? Like, are you going to go back to a comfort food versus a food that would be more on your plan when you are chronically drinking?
Right.
So like, he doesn't get into that, but it kind of made me think about it. Like, how does that look in your daily decisions?
Well, yeah, because the sugary things give you that little
Boost.
gives you that boost, which is what you're struggling with. That was the other thing, was the myth about that sugary drinks give you worse hangovers.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
Because he was like, if that were the case, then like vodka with orange juice would be one of, would be really high based upon the sugar content, but it's actually like really low on the list. The highest is brandy. They didn't talk about tequila. I was very upset. I wanted to know where tequila fell in the list. But
Maybe
vodka
we
was
should
actually
email him our
good.
questions after this. We should email him and be like, okay, well, we just had a Zoom call about your podcast. Can we just ask you a few things?
I know, right? And why I say vodka was good, nothing was good, but vodka was lower on the list in general.
Mhm.
Good thing.
Like, check.
Just saying.
Yeah, I think
check.
I'm pretty sure like vodka orange juice was right around the same with beer.
That makes
About the
sense.
same.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but that did make me feel good, because everybody's always like, oh, well, margaritas have so much sugar in them. And now I'm just like, well, if I'm going to have a margarita, I'm already slightly killing myself, I guess. So basically, I'm making myself have issues.
Sugar's not going to do it. The alcohol is.
Yeah, it's not
poison.
the sugar. The sugar is not the problem here at all.
Oh, goodness. All right. Does anybody have any questions about alcohol or questions
about anything?
I'm not drinking it.
I know, right?
I'm
It does.
spaced over.
Sue, I started listening to the podcast, and I was drinking, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I can't even finish this. Like, I can't, this is bad. I can't do this.
This isn't the one to grab a drink and then listen.
As you're sipping on that wine.
No, this
Yeah,
is
no.
water.
No, it was very enlightening though. And it makes me think, it's like, the whole breast cancer thing. I mean, that really does have me like going, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I need I need to finish it then. And
I know, I need to finish it. Too.
Mhm. I need to start it.
There's like, okay, so he gives a bit of an introduction, and then he talks a bunch of ads. Skip those.
Yeah.
Like, just
kind of
give
ads
yourself
spread
back
out
a
through
couple
all of them.
minutes of your life, and then he does another, round, and then he talks about greens for like 30 seconds or whatever, which I skipped over. And then he goes back and then he finishes it pretty much. So, I mean, it is really long. So he had to probably put in some ads to make people happy.
We had to sponsor.
Mhm. I'm trying to think, if there was anything else.
I thought it was interesting, and he was talking a little bit about, and we'd had this conversation on nutrition calls about how eating food, you guys might have talked about this too, but how eating food doesn't actually counteract your
We did
alcohol.
talk about it.
I was like, oh,
That,
that's
those hot dogs didn't matter a whip of good for you and put
bread, the half a loaf of bread. No.
Oh,
No.
No.
oh my gosh.
No, I haven't drank since Sue traumatized me in Ohio. No, I'm just kidding. I just haven't drank since Ohio. And so somebody said something like, what did Sue do to you? I'm like,
I did.
no, I
Hey,
just.
Sue had COVID when you were in Ohio, remember?
Right.
Exactly.
now
I
nobody
just-
wants to go
but I-
see Sue after that. I
Oh,
don't know.
No.
Aw.
We do.
But look at it this way, had I not had COVID, you might have come out of there even worse. So
It's true.
just saying.
It's so
Mhm.
true. I know,
Yeah.
like, we've talked about this a lot I drink every Saturday, or I did drink every Saturday, and I would have maybe like 4 seltzers. That was probably 4 to 6, sometimes a little more. And every once in a while on like Friday nights, but I've been on this like hamster wheel of nothing, like not seeing really any progress or results. And so I'm not really seeing very many progress. And I'm testing this out. Like, I haven't been drinking, but I'm not seeing much difference, and it's been over a month. So again, listening to stuff like this is interesting, because again, you're thinking long-term issues that can cause, but yeah, just doing my own little research here, but it is just really interesting to not see much other than, I would say, the cognitive benefits
Mhm.
the day after. That's pretty much the only big thing I've noticed. So,
But how long were you doing what you were doing previously?
years. I
Not
would
Mhm.
only drink on Saturday, on the weekends. I don't drink during the week, so.
And
Three
he
months.
said that based upon how much you consume and how long you've been doing that type of behavior, that type of activity, it's like 2 to 6 months before your body gets back into a healed state at the minimum. And you're living at a higher level cortisol wise. So like, for instance, that could look like food craving issues too. I mean, if you really think about it, because if your cortisol levels are higher, you're going to crave more crap. You're going to crave more
Right.
sugar. You're going to crave more processed. You're going to be reaching for those things that will also boost your serotonin levels and your happy hormones, because you're not getting that from the alcohol anymore. So your body's going to try to compensate the entire time while it's also trying to heal.
Yeah.
So,
Very
I
interesting.
don't know if you've been experiencing any of those other things, but still, it takes 2 to 6 months before your body will start to get back to a quote unquote normal level of cortisol and serotonin and whatever else he said. Can't remember.
So just in time for Mexico.
Right?
That's
Yeah,
crazy
and
though.
Like
That's a long time.
I'm gonna be curious going into the gut protocol again. Now I've taken out soy from my life, right? So that was a trigger for me. And I haven't I've just been eating, I guess what I would call regular for me, right? Like, it's still not super high sugar. I don't know when the last drink was I had, maybe 2 weeks ago. And so it's like, there's not these other things, but I'm really fascinated to see when I get back into more plants and more fiber, like how different that feels compared to just like a regular portion fix plan.
Mhm.
See, and knowing, because I'm not going to go through and eliminate again. I'll go in, I'll be eliminating, I'll be in maintenance. I'm not looking for the triggers anymore. I'm just going into maintenance. So I'm fascinated to see how my body responds, and if things kind of feel more different than the last time we started gut protocol, or less, or the same. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know for me, when I do drink and different things affect me differently, but I know that I can tell, like I'm pudgy, I'm bloated, I'm, for a couple days. So what Beverly said, where it takes 1 to 2 days to get out of your system or up to 2 days to get out of your system, I can totally tell when you guys might not be able to see, but I can see on myself where,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, there's that drink that I just had because I can see in my muscles and different things. It definitely, and then a couple days later, I'm, back to where I was. So it definitely, yeah, definitely, you can definitely tell for sure, for me at least.
Yeah, my big thing is the whole anxiety thing.
Yeah.
Mine definitely. Yeah. Which, I mean, he literally, like, that was a big chunk of, he made very specific reference about the anxiety that you experience
Yeah, that you
after drinking.
change your baseline. Yeah, you change your baseline. And so then
Mhm.
even when you're not drinking, if you're a chronic drinker, those in between times, your anxiety is higher. Your
Mhm.
stress level is higher. You're operating on higher levels of those things. Yeah, I thought that was fascinating because I think you think it's been a week or I've gone 4 or 5 days or whatever, I only
Mhm.
drink on the weekend. So this isn't impacting me during the week. And what he's saying
Mhm.
is if you're doing it repetitively, it's impacting you. Your baseline is different.
Right. And that is fascinating to me.
Mhm.
Because I've gone through periods of time where I haven't, where I've gone months without drinking. And then I've gone through periods of time where I will drink more often.
Right.
I've also, I mean, like, then that looks like many different ways in my journey. My gosh, when I did P90X, one of the rounds I did P90X, and pretty much every single weekend we had a friend that did P90X with us, and we were feeding him all week and weekend. He gave us money, but we did the cooking, and he came over and did the workouts and everything with us. And we would polish off a couple bottles of wine and without a problem. There was one night that it was 3 bottles of wine. And I remember that wine. I remember that night. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But so it looks like that all the way down to, like, yeah, I don't even, I've gone months without drinking, or I'll have, drinks on one night and then go a couple months or
Think
every
about,
weekend.
think about like if you've been pregnant. I mean, most of us, at
Yeah.
least 9 months when you're pregnant, or at least 7 months if you don't know you're pregnant right away. Um,
He
and
talks
then
about that too.
yeah, and then maybe a couple of months after that, you're up to 9 months to a year of no drinking during that time. So I'm wondering, how your body would heal itself during that time as well, because you're not ingesting that poison.
Well, it's very focused on the growing of the baby, basically. He doesn't touch on how it will heal, but he talks about how, if it's because there are people who go through there are people who believe that some consumption of alcohol during pregnancy is okay. Like, specifically, he talked about champagne, that some people believe that champagne is like something that they can drink while they're pregnant. I don't know who these people are, but bottom line, it causes fetal alcohol syndrome. And so he's like, you just don't do it. And he says that, there are people who will, not realize that they're pregnant at the beginning, and that can look like that, most of the time it seems like that doesn't cause issues, because the fetus is so young, it's just at such an early stage that it's able to continue to eat, to form and heal and do what it needs to do. But basically, I mean, like, your body is 100% focused on what it needs to do to develop that fetus, and any time that you take that away by giving it alcohol, you're doing a disservice. Okay, ladies, I gotta go.
Okay. Oh, here, I'll take a picture. All right, we ready? Oh, I don't know if I got Jess looking. Hang on, let's do more. Ready? Okay, look again. Okay. All right, see you later,
All
Beth.
right.
I'm trying
Bye.
to do homework too. Bye.
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 All right, well, is there any questions to wrap up? I know we're almost at 6 here. Anything else you want to talk about with alcohol?
I have 2 runs next week involving alcohol.
Oh, all right. You have some after your run, like the beer
Well,
run?
The one, you get a beer at the end of it.
Yep.
Other one, there were 2 options. I went, of course, with the more fun one. You either get 1 12-ounce drink at the end, or, of course, if you want to walk it versus running it, there's 5 stops.
Oh
Where
my
they-
goodness. Five
they-
places you can get a,
Well, they give you a 3-ounce drink, and I guess every one of them is like a different theme. It's like a Halloween costume type run,
that does sound fun.
and then at the end you get a 12-ounce drink.
Ah, nice.
I just thought it'd be fun, you know.
Yeah. It was funny. I did a run one time where they gave you beer after, and I remember I thought it would be so fun. And then the race was so early, and then I got there and I think it was still only like 10 or something. And I'm like, I don't even know that I can, like, this doesn't even sound good right now. I just
Well,
won't.
The one beer starts at 9:30. The other one, though, with all the different drinks, is 11 o'clock.
Oh, that's
it-
good. Yeah.
So
yeah, 'cause too early. Too early, and you won't want to do that.
Not too early.
well, my half marathon starts at 7:30 in the morning,
Yeah. When is that scheduled for?
November 12th.
Ooh, exciting.
And then if I could go to Savannah, there's one in December I'd like to do. So we'll see.
Fun. All these fun runs.
Mhm.
Love it. All right. And then so tomorrow is Rosie the Riveter, right? Is that right?
Yes.
So
So
you
what is it?
filter Rosie the
Rosie the
Riveter.
Riveter. You can do it. We can do it.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I don't know who that is.
Okay, Google Rosie the
Sorry.
Riveter. Have a little
And-
history lesson. We talked
Yes.
about it in the team call if you want to watch that.
Yeah, Jess, what did you Google? We can do it.
Okay.
We can do
Yeah,
it.
well, I did on
We can.
Snapchat. I typed we can and like a whole bunch came up. But when I typed Rosie the
Oh.
Riveter, there wasn't
You
really
could
very
just
many.
pose like her. You could put a bandana in your hair. You could just do a
Good.
filter.
Okay.
I have a shirt that has kind of someone that kind of looks like her on it. So
You put
Gotcha.
what is it, a polka dot? Is it a polka dot
I
bow?
think it's red
Okay.
polka dot. Yeah. Bandana.
Oh.
Red and white polka dot bandana.
Yeah.
And then
I don't have any of that with me, so
Okay, I go with the
filter
filters
it.
then.
I might just have to do a.
Yeah.
filter it.
Just do your pose. Just look her
I will
up.
just do my pose.
Yeah.
That'll
look her up
work.
and you'll know the pose. And then for future calendar use, the next meal prep class is going to be October 2nd, which is the day before the gut protocol group starts officially. So gut protocol starts September 26th for prep week. So if you've done prep before, you don't necessarily have to jump in on that. But yeah, so that's what's coming up. And then Extend Bar is out there for the sample workout. If everybody wants to try
Fun.
that.
It's fun.
That
A lot of
Comes
fun.
out the 4th, and there is going to be a group for that. If anybody wants to do it, sounds super fun.
It is.
What equipment do you need for the sample? Anything?
A loop. You can use a loop if you want a loop.
A loop?
And
The
if you don't
program
have-
itself though has weights, right? Like the 2-pound ankle weights.
Yeah, and if you don't have any ankle weights, you could just, like, I just use my little dumbbells, but you didn't have to. So
Okay,
you don't have to use
I
them.
might give it a try tomorrow morning.
That's what I was gonna say. I'll try it in the morning.
It was
Yeah.
a lot of fun. That's all.
I'll
should
try
this
before
weekend.
7.
Yeah.
What was that?
I'll try before 7.
There you go.
That way, by the
I'll-
time I'm on Zoom, I
You're
am done.
off. You can turn your camera off. Come on, it's fun.
Oh, you don't want us to watch you?
No.
Just turn it
Deanna
off.
watched me do the whole thing, or maybe it was Jess. I don't remember which one.
I
of
don't
you.
think I saw you do it at all. I don't know.
Somebody was on.
Hmm.
Somebody was
Depends
on
on how
the
late
whole
you
time.
were.
I saw your reels. They look really good, but I was like, I don't know.
Again, the steps are really simple. It was, it's the grapevine, while you're doing something with your hands, but it's the grapevine steps. So, we all know that from school. I mean, stuff like that.
If you took PE, you can do these moves.
Yeah. Again, the way that I think of it is like a jazzercise class.
Yeah.
Like that's what it reminds me of. So,
I have never done it, but okay.
Maybe we
well,
should bring
I'm
back the
that
leotards
old,
for,
and
let's bring back leotards for San Antonio. We'll all go to the workout in leotards and sweatbands. I mean, how amazing would that be?
we're definitely getting a photographer.
Um,
I think Jess. is
yeah,
out.
we just need a photographer
need
to
Spanx.
follow us around the whole time.
I know
That's what the leotard is like, Spanx. That's
it is. It's
you're not
totally-
going anywhere in that thing.
It's gonna squish stuff out
Haven't
in
you seen
places
the
it shouldn't.
unitards? Haven't you seen the unitards lately?
Yeah,
like-
there's a lot of them.
Suck everything in
Yeah.
from head to toe.
Sucked right
You
up.
can try it. It sounds sweaty.
It does sound sweaty.
Oh.
It's already gonna be sweaty now.
The reels of trying to get it on and trying to get it off are going to be hilarious.
Yeah, every time I wear one of those bodysuits and I'm snapping it at my crotch, I'm like, why did I wear this?
All right.
much
And
water
with
for this.
that, we
Matt, you
will,
need to-
digress. off.
You need to stop recording, Deanna.
Timber's gonna end it for us.
Uh-oh. Okay, I gotta go do
Today's
homework. so.
We'll see you later. See you
Thanks,
on-
great
during the
chatting with
week.
you.
I have a
Bye,
question.
guys.
I have a
Well,
question.
here, let
about
me
this
stop
one.
recording.